Welcome from the Office for Education Policy. I'm Denise Arola, Associate Director, and I want to fill you in a little bit on the 2026 tests that are going on right now in your child's school. As a quick reminder, each part of the Atlas system was designed for a purpose. The summative tests given to students in the spring each year are designed to provide families and their students with information about how well they are achieving mastery of the grade level standards. This is important because it may inform whether your child or your children need additional support if they aren't consistently demonstrating mastery of the grade level standards. You can access their information with their special code that your school or school district should have sent you, and you go to the family portal and enter that code along with their birth date and their name as in their official records. When you log in, you'll get this landing page. It's really important to take a moment to orient yourself. The spring tests are being scored and posted quickly this year. If your child took the summative test, that is the spring test, already, it will be posted on this landing page. However, schools schedule their tests based on their local scheduling needs, so your child may not have completed the summative test yet. The window for testing opened April 13th and doesn't close until May 22nd. That means your child may not have tested yet if you don't see their results in the portal. You have on the landing page a quick view of your child's score for their test in a horizontal bar that helps you see where it falls on the scale and within which performance level. The scale score is color-coded so you can tell from this report for our student Jordan that the math score is just below the advanced level cut and solidly for ELA in the proficient range. I want to share a quick example to show you how you can tell if a student has finished their summative tests. Here's a child that completed her math summative. Right next to the name of the test, you see this little yellow new button. So that means these are new results for the spring. If you look at science and English language arts, you can see that their latest test is still from the winter, their interim. So this child is in the middle of testing. They've finished math, but they haven't finished science and English language arts, or maybe they've finished them, but they haven't been returned from scoring. It should be a pretty quick turnaround within 1 or 2 days once they take the test. Again, in this case, you've got some of the same features as you saw on the prior screen. You can view all tests. You can download a more detailed report. We're going to take a look at that. If you go back to the full view of the landing page, you can click on the download button for the individual detailed report. Then you'll get a pop-up. When you click on that pop-up, it will download your PDF report. The PDF report consists of 3 pages. The first page gives you an overall view of your child's mastery of grade level standards. Something you'll see here that you didn't see on the landing page is that your child's scale score comes with plus or minus points. So in this case, in this example, Jordan has 1,066 plus or minus 3 points. That's because all tests have a little bit of uncertainty. They are a single point in time, and so even though we're doing the best we can to estimate where your child is, there's a little uncertainty around that exact score. So for Jordan, you have a score that would range from 1,063 to 1,069. If Jordan were to take the same test over and over, he would fall within that range. That's what we mean by that little bit of uncertainty. And also, there's something that you really need to pay attention to. This is the page that gives you the comparison with all the other students in their school, all the other students in the school district, and also to the state of Arkansas. However, since the testing window doesn't close until the 22nd of May, these numbers are going to be changing daily. They could go up, they could go down. So that comparative piece, though posted, will not be set until the end of the testing window. So I would also check back, if you're interested in that, at the end of the testing window to see how your child did relative to their school, their district, and the state of Arkansas. At the top of the report, since this is a K2 report, there is an additional score that's provided. So the student has an overall scale score, but then up at the top where I've put this green arrow, you can see an oral reading fluency score. This score is explained on page 2, so let's take a look. So at the top of page 2, we have the oral reading fluency rate, or we call it ORF. And in the paragraph that I've outlined in green, and the green arrow that's just above it, you put those two pieces of information together. The paragraph explains what's being measured, the rate or fluency of the student, as well as how accurate they are at reading the words. And so at the end of second grade, you would expect a student to be able to complete 94 words with 96% accuracy. Now this is going to be different for different grade levels, so make sure you check that if you have more children who are receiving these scores. The second thing to look at on this page are the little bar charts under performance. And there's actually 2 columns titled performance, but the little bar charts have what I like to call the starfighters in them. It's the dot with the 2 wings on it. And these indicate the range that your child's score falls within, taking into account the uncertainty around their score. The results are described or interpreted for you in the performance level description on the right, and those are done in great detail, so it's really helpful to read through those. There's also a key for the symbol in the performance. In all 3 categories, this child is at or near mastery, and you can tell that because their starfighter range includes the cut between below the standard and above the standard. And that's how you would read page 2. On page 3, we provide a history of your child's score. K2 is slightly different in that they don't have a lot of history, and so what's presented to you is just the within-year history. And in 2025-26 school year, the only interim available was the winter interim, so you're only going to see 2 bars at the most for your child. If your child's school did not use the interim, you will only see the summative bar. And this just allows you to see where they were at each of those points in time and how they're doing relative to grade level standards and expectations. See if I can. Let's shift over from the K2 reports to the grades 3 through high school reports. There are a couple of differences I'd like to point out. For the upper grades, starting with grade 3, we now have science, which is included. Again, notice that in this student's case, Emily, she only completed her math summative. Her science and English language arts summatives are in progress. So if I wanted to view all scores, I could click on View All Scores or View All Tests. And when you choose this option for a subject, you'll see the tests taken so far this year. In this case, Emily took a fall and winter interim for science. I clicked on the science. She improved from 1,079 to 1,089 by February. In both cases, her scores were at the advanced level. This student is an older student, so I think we're looking at grade 6 here, and their scale scores provided, also the comparisons to the school, district, and state, but again, remember that's a moving target until the end of the window on May 22nd. So our Emily Hackett here has a score of 1,098 plus or minus 4. She falls in the advanced range, and this part of the report gives you what that means. We know that this student, if we could perfectly measure her, would have a score that would fall 95% of the time between 1,094 and 1,102. Page 2 for this report is a little bit different because instead of an oral reading fluency or some other score, what you have for math is a quantile measure, And if it's an ELA report, there should be a Lexile score for reading. This is also similar to the K2 in that we have reporting categories and we have our little starfighters and the information about how to interpret those horizontal bars, as well as the performance icons, is provided. And in this case, this student was at or above mastery in all 3 reporting categories. And what that means is actually provided for you under the performance level descriptions. This longitudinal report has more information because our students at the grades 3 and up have been taking summatives and interims since 2024, or spring of 2024. So Emily here has quite a history. And what we want to do is notice that the record goes not just back to grade 4, but it includes interims and summatives all the way up through her math summative for grade 6. So you have a lot of information, and you can look at the pattern of her scoring over time. You'll notice, though, that when it comes to the interims are typically lower than the summatives, and that's because, for example, when she finished 4th grade, she was advanced, and then at the beginning of 5th grade, her score was right on the margin of advanced and proficient. That's because she's being assessed on the next grade level standards that she's expected to learn by the end of the year. So we don't want to overinterpret drops when we know that students, for the most part, will start lower at the beginning of the year against what's expected from them by the end of the year. Now, in terms of the scores, you're going to notice the scale is the same each year because it's communicating the extent of mastery each year that the student demonstrates for the standards by the end of the year. So it's different from tests where you expect to see the score at the lower grade levels to be lower than the score at the upper grade levels. In our case, we want to be above that proficiency line, 1,060, and that's a proficient score for all grade levels. So one way to look at this is to think about what would be expected. The pattern that is expected is that a student will have a lower score in the fall compared to the prior spring summative, because it's an increase in the standards. Those standards are the new standards for the grade that they're entering or just beginning, and they're not supposed to have mastered them till the end of the year. So how much increase we expect from a student depends on the starting score relative to the proficient cut. Students who start low, we want to see a bigger point increase to make more progress within the year toward that 1,060. And students who are close to 1,060 or above it at the beginning of the year, we may see increased scores from fall to winter to spring, but the point increase may not be as large. In this case, we have got the chart, and I just want to spend a minute. The black line with the dots shows the expected pattern, that you're higher on the summative at the end of the year, you start lower, particularly if it's the fall of the next year, because you're dealing with a different set of standards. I just wanted to point that out. And in the spirit of keeping this as short as possible, I'm going to end here and say, what questions do you have? We really would love to hear from you. If you have any questions that we can help you answer or help provide answers, email us at oep@uark.edu and stay tuned for more. Thank you for tuning in.